My name is Taylor. I am a senior in high school this year. I go to San Juan Valley High School. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the area. Um, but yeah, I love speech and debate. I've been playing soccer since I was super young. And I'm really looking forward to going to college next year.
Where are
Hi,
you going to go
Alice.
to college?
I'm sorry?
Oh, where are you going to college?
Unfortunately, the decisions haven't come back yet, so I'm not
Yeah.
sure.
Okay.
I applied early decision to Northwestern, so I'll hear back from them in a couple weeks. And if I end up getting in there, then that's where I'll go. But hopefully somewhere on the Midwest or on the East Coast.
Wonderful.
Good.
Hi, Alice. My name's Edward. I'm also a senior in high school. I actually go to Monte Vista High School, which is actually Taylor's rival high school. At school, I also compete in speech and debate as well, just like Taylor. I also play tennis for the Monte Vista tennis team. And in my free time, I like to do a lot of hiking. I go on outings with my Boy Scout troop, and I like to spend time with my family. Oh, and I'm also applying to college right now, so that's another big thing on my mind.
Well, that sounds like a busy life you are having, and that's great. All right, let's see. Have I got everybody?
Yes.
Okay, so I guess I'll better get started. I wanted to thank you, Leah, for inviting me. And this is my daughter, Becky, here.
Hello.
And
Hi.
so anyway, this is kind of new to me to talk on Zoom. I have never done this before. So I hope it'll go over all right. And I've written out most of everything, because I thought maybe I would forget otherwise. So anyway, it starts out with the conditions in Japan at the time. They were running out of resources, mainly oil. So they were stretching out. First they had gone into China and then the Philippines. Now they figured they would take the United States. So Hirohito was the emperor of Japan at the time, and he figured his area, his whole state, was the chosen state. So they figured the only way they could get it anyway and harm the United States would be by a surprise attack. So anyway, they started out with about 140 units of ships, submarines, destroyers, and they came through from Japan to the Hawaiian Islands on the northern route. They figured this way nobody would see them and it would help with their attack. And it was successful. Nobody knew they were there. They anchored about 100 miles to 150 miles north of the Hawaiian Islands. On December the 7th, on December the 1st, rather, the 7th, rather, yeah, the 7th, their first attack left their union there, about 150 miles north of the islands, and they said, Tora, 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 which meant the attack was on. And let's see what I had here. Yeah, so anyway, yeah. Okay, now I'll go into get organized here. Okay. So anyway, that's a little bit that I will tell about Japan. They were very aggressive, and they left. Their first attack was about 7:50 in the morning of December 1st. And now the next thing is my story, and I'm sure you've heard all the history of the attack on Pearl Harbor and how they wanted to attack the United States. It is important to remember the past and all the sacrifices that have been made to keep our liberty here in the United States. So anyway, here's my story. After high school, I entered a state college at Chico. We lived in a little town called Hamilton City. And I wanted to be a nurse right away. So in those days, it took 1 year of college and 3 years of nursing school. So I attended Chico State, and then I went to Oakland to the Highland Hospital, and that's where I got my RN degree. And when after I graduated, all the different branches of the service, of course, this was in 1941. So all the branches of the service wanted nurses. And so I checked them all out, the Air Force, the Marines, the Navy, and the Army. And then I decided on the Navy. I joined the Navy because I thought the boys were the cutest. So anyway, yeah, I'm going to have to read the rest of this now. And while I was waiting for my papers to come in to join the Navy, I worked at Peralta Hospital in Oakland, which is on the highest point of hill. And the war had already started. There was, every night there was a terrible blackout. No lights could be on. So they turned all the lights off in the hospital. And it was very eerie looking out across San Francisco and Berkeley and Oakland with no lights.
Why did they have to turn all the lights off?
Pardon?
Why did they have to turn all the lights off?
Because they expected the Japanese had already attacked Pearl Harbor, and they figured they were going to come to California. We were the closest.
Alice, well, I have a question. What was your initial reaction once you heard the news about the Pearl Harbor attack? Because I know that we hear in our history books a lot about, like what you're saying, it's a surprise attack and no one was expecting it. But we don't really get to hear a firsthand experience of someone at the time of like what was going through their mind right as the news sort of first arrived.
Going through our minds or theirs?
Or your mind, like what?
My mind.
Like,
well, it was very frightening. Of course, we thought they were coming right to California. That would be their next step off. But I immediately went to the hospital where I worked to volunteer to stay there as long as they needed me. And I worked on the top floor at Peralta Hospital, the 6th floor. And it was just so eerie to see all the lights go out and the dogs would howl. And we had special flashlights that had a red filter on them so we could still take care of our patients. And I was on the maternity floor, so we wanted to take the babies first down to the basement. Then we would take the patients down. It was pretty scary. So, and in our houses, our homes, we had blackout curtains because we didn't want just a small little light would direct a Japanese plane to be attacked us. So,
I almost got a plane downtown, you and your friend.
yeah, we went down. Yeah, another nurse and I went down to Oakland one night. From this time, I was stationed there at Vallejo. We went down to Oakland to have dinner, and we had just finished eating, and all of a sudden the sirens sounded, and there was a blackout. Everything went dark, and it was night. It was probably around 8 o'clock, and we left the restaurant hoping that we could find our way back to our apartment. And a police officer found us, and so they said, "Get in the car here. Well, they'll take us home, or we'll be safe there," because it was so dark. That was pretty good. So in March of 1942, my Navy orders finally came through. So my first assignment was to be stationed at Mare Island, which is a little hospital about 30 miles north of San Francisco and just by Vallejo in that area. And so I spent a few days with my parents before I left to join the Navy. And the hospital was just a very beautiful hospital. Pardon? Yeah, I will.
Public time, so.
Okay. Are you setting the time for me?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. All right. Now comes the interesting part. In 1939, a young boy graduated from high school in Wisconsin, and he joined the Navy. And he was immediately sent to the battleship, the West Virginia. That was his ship. And he was trained to be a fire controlman, which is one that passes ammunition to the big guns to be shot off. Well, on the morning of December 7th, on that Sunday morning, he had planned to go ashore to Honolulu, go to a movie and have dinner, and then go down to the beach and watch the girls and all that sort of thing. And he was standing there in his skivvies, which is underwear, Navy talk, when these these planes rather, came in. And he thought, oh, shucks, now he won't be able to go on Liberty. Well, he looked up and of course he saw the great big Japanese insignia on the bottom of the planes. And then they started dropping bombs and firing at them. So he knew this is war. He ran up to his battle station, which was about 3 stories up. And when he got there, everything was locked. So he saw the Arizona. The Japanese had dropped a bomb down in through their ammunition area. And he saw it explode and go up into flames. He saw the Milwaukee, which was another battleship, roll over. It had about 400 people on there, boys in there that couldn't get out. And when the West Virginia took about 7 hits of torpedoes, and one of them was so strong that it knocked him right off the ship. And the oil from the battleships being shot at had leaked out and it ignited, and the oil was on the water and it was on fire. So he was at least a good swimmer. He swam out from under the flames. And he was out there in the water, and when he saw a boat picking up the boys that were blown off the ships, he waved to them. They came over to pick him up. And he was just pulling himself up into the boat when the Japanese came over and they were shooting at the boys. He was shot with a bullet, the Japanese bullet, machine gun bullet, and he went unconscious. They took him to the hospital nearby, and he was unconscious for several hours. When he came to, he felt pretty good. They looked at him and thought it was just shrapnel that had hit him in the back. So they issued him a set of clothes and sent him back to duty. And this time he was put on the Dobbin, which is an aircraft carrier tender. And they went down to the South Pacific. Every time they had a general alarm, he ran for his battle station, but he couldn't make it. He would just pass out. And he didn't know what was wrong with him. They just figured he had war nerves. Then one morning, and this happened several times, and they just kind of ignored it. One morning he woke up with this terrible pain in his side, so they put him on the USS Solus, which is a hospital ship. And they immediately prepped him and took him to surgery and took out his appendix. So while he was recovering from that, he was able to tell the doctor that there was something else wrong with him. He says, I can't walk very far, and I want to just sit down and lay down. When I'm in bed, my heart goes thump, 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 then it just stops. Then it quivers a little bit and it starts up again. So anyway, the doctor says, well, let's x-ray you. So they x-rayed him, and while they were x-raying him, they didn't tell him anything they found, but they were all saying, oh my goodness, how could this be and whatnot. So anyway, when they finished, they put him back, they told him to get back in bed and be as quiet as you can. You have a condition that you shouldn't be up walking around. When he got to but they didn't tell him what they found. When he got down to his room, he called the corpsman in. He says, "Hey, what's wrong with me?" And the corpsman said, "Well, don't you know you have a bullet in your heart?" So this was really a shock. And the doctor, Navy doctor, examined him and called him in his office. He said, "Well, we have good news and we have bad news. The bad news, you're not going to live very long with that bullet in your heart. The good news is we think we can take it out." Now, this was back in 1941 when they really hadn't done any surgery on hearts. So the doctor said, "You think about it and let us know." So anyway,
This was 4.5 months after Pearl Harbor.
yeah, this was in April. So anyway, he talked it over and then he figured, well, if he's going to die, he might as well die on the operating table. So anyway, twice he was scheduled for surgery and twice it was canceled. On the third time, he came up to the nurse's station and I gave him his medication, pre-op medication. He took a hold, and at that time, my maiden name was Beck. Everybody called me Becky. So after I'd given him his medication, he took a hold of my hand. He said, "Miss Becky, if I ever get over this, will you go out on liberty with me?" In other words, that's, would you go on a date? So what could I say was, "Oh, sure." Because nobody thought he was going to make it. They had never done surgery on a heart before. So I felt pretty safe. Well, he was up in surgery and he was there for quite a few hours. When he came back, he was my special duty. I was his special duty nurse. And when he first came out of the anesthesia, he looked up and saw me and he says, "Oh, we're going on liberty, aren't we?" So anyway, I said, "Oh yeah, I guess." But he made a fabulous and a fast recovery. And about 6 weeks later, we did go on liberty. We went to San Francisco, had dinner, went to a show. And then we went on several other trips. We went to Los Angeles to meet his family and met my family. And let's see, I lost my drift of thought. Anyway, when we were coming home from Los Angeles, they wanted to take us up on Mount Wilson, which is a big high mountain there above Los Angeles. And while we were up there was a siren and all the lights went out. And we thought we would never get back to our plane to get up. So I think we're running out of time. Anyway, on the way back, we did finally make it all right to the plane and we flew back to San Francisco. On the way back, every time we went over a city, these great high light beams would shine on us until we were recognized. So anyway, this is the bullet now that was taken out of that. Can you see that?
Oh, wow.
That's so cool.
I wish
Wow,
you
it's
could
in
see it.
really good condition.
Yes, it had apparently hit a battleship and ricocheted off of the ship. It has a little battleship gray on it, and it says an indentation there. Anyway, he carried that bullet in his heart from December 1st, or December 7th rather, until April 17th when they took it out.
And that was really in his heart for what, 4 months?
4.5 months.
Yeah,
That was in
4
his heart. Wow. That's so
Yeah.
cool. I can't believe he survived. That's amazing.
It was amazing, really and truly. So then after we, pardon? Oh yeah. Later on in that same year, we went to Reno, and after we both had got our honorable discharges, we went to Reno, and this is what it is. This would be it's a Japanese machine gun bullet. It's like that. Okay,
They couldn't see.
can you
Wow.
see it? Yeah.
Wow. That's huge.
This is the
That's
part.
very large.
Yeah. Okay.
So they have questions.
Now, do you have questions?
Oh, I actually had one. So you said that you said that you grew up in California. You spent a lot of time here, and I was wondering, what do you think has been the biggest change? Like, how are certain cities or certain places where you grew up in or you experienced, how have they changed like now in 2020?
The change
Cities.
in the cities, you mean, or in
Yeah,
the
like just anywhere in California, like anywhere you spent a lot. And you said you spent a lot of time like near Mare Island, or which is in near Vallejo. You also spent
Mhm.
time in like Berkeley, San Francisco, and I was sort of wondering how those cities have changed since
Tell,
like.
They
tell
have
about
changed. They have grown. Vallejo was just a small city at the time,
tell them what San Francisco is like.
and the San Francisco airport was just one room. It was about as big as this room right here, and the plane we went on was a pop job, and there was only 8 passengers, and it took longer to get down there, probably by a couple hours more, and everything was uh, quite a bit different. That's for sure. Uh, After we got married, we let's see, we went to Los Angeles and lived there for a while. Then we moved back up to Pleasant Hill, and we lived in Pleasant Hill for well, about we raised 4 children, and uh, my husband worked for the Marine Service because he learned all that first information on how to take care of compasses and steering gear. And I think our time is getting up. But anyway, we had a real good wedding, a good marriage. And in December of 1991, he had a massive heart attack and he passed away. So it was strange enough. My first youngster was born on December 7th, 1943, and he passed away, and my husband passed away in December of 1991. So, what else? Is there anything else you would like to ask about it?
5-minute warning.
5-minute warning. 5 minute more.
What other questions do you guys have?
What did all of your children grow up to do?
What did we all grow up to do?
Yeah, well, I had decided my dad was injured in a fire when he was anyway, and I used to visit him a lot when I was a youngster. While he
What
was
was your
recovering.
question again?
Oh, what did all of your children grow up to do, Alice?
Oh, that's when I
What
decided.
did your children do?
Oh, well, they all found jobs. Becky worked, graduated from Heels College in Oakland, which is a
Business college.
business college,
And
and the others just worked. They, I had two girls and 2 boys. This is my oldest girl, and my other daughter was a nurse, a practical nurse, and
Jim was carpenter.
Jim was a carpenter. That's right.
Mhm.
So that was just about that. Let's see.
More questions?
More questions?
Oh, yeah. So throughout your story, it's really impressive, like everything you've overcome, like throughout the years. And obviously, in like 2020, like we have the coronavirus, and coronavirus is like another really big event in history. And I was sort of wondering, when the pandemic ends, what's something that you really want to go back to doing? Like, what's something that you haven't been able to do because of the pandemic?
Well, if I was younger, I would like to go back nursing. I liked nursing. It was something that was very gratifying to me, and I probably would be back nursing.
Right now, I think.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, you were wondering what she would do now. Probably be with people.
Yeah.
Mom's an avid card player. We play online with our neighbors nearly every day.
And we play cribbage and pinochle. But yes, it's a great life.
Sorry, Taylor. your question?
Oh, no problem. How long were you a nurse for?
How long have I been a nurse? I worked until 1977. That's when my husband retired, and I retired also. And the rest of the time, we had a good life together. We traveled. We took quite a few cruises and went through the Panama Canal twice, and just had a good life together.